Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here, welcome back to another video for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, and today we want to talk about another one of the new armor skills, and this time it is Sneak Attack. We've been doing this for all of the new skills introduced in Sunbreak. In this series we break down how the new skills work, how they interact with other skills, their best use cases, and all the good related stuff that you basically want to know when working and building around these skills. So if you guys do enjoy this, a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below if you have any questions, let me know if you guys have been using this skill, and of course do be sure to keep it locked for plenty more. So to begin with, Sneak Attack, where can it primarily be found? Initially it is found on the Lucent Nagakuga armor pieces, predominantly the chest, the waist and the legs, with 1 point in each. Currently we have not seen this on any decorations or charms just yet, but this is of course typical behaviour, because I would imagine further down the line when future title updates come down, they will probably introduce these as additional things we can get later on other pieces. But for the time being, if you want to get this, then of course you need to turn your attention to the Lucent Naga armor. Of course, if you do happen to get this anywhere else, by all means let us know down below. Now, as for the skill itself, Sneak Attack is a skill that increases damage to large monsters when the attacks hit them from behind. Level 1 will increase your attack power by 5%, level 2 will increase your attack power by 10%, level 3 is actually a typo. In game it says it will increase it by 12%, but it actually increases it by 20%, which is a massive boost. But what exactly does this all mean? Well, basically, in its most basic form, this is a damage buff for attacking the monster's other potential weak spots. Keep in mind, while a lot of people will typically gravitate towards the head, it is not the only place you can be attacking. It creates an interesting dynamic where rather than fighting for the head all the time in team hunts, you're actually rewarded for spacing out. It's also pretty forgiving, because while it is described as a move that gives you benefit when you attack behind the monster, you don't have to be explicitly behind them. You can be sort of off to one side. Effectively, as long as you are not dead center in front of them, this should typically give you benefits. With ranged weapons, just standing simply off to the side will also allow you to get the bonus. So basically, just if you want to use this, don't attack head on and you're probably going to be pretty good. But that doesn't mean to say you should avoid the head. Just make sure you're hitting them angles. Again, as mentioned, the tooltip in game is currently incorrect. The level 3 version will offer you 20% as opposed to 12%, which means it is definitely more rewarding at level 3, as level 1 and 2 give you 5% and 10%, which again isn't necessarily bad, but 20% is a huge draw. It's incredibly useful, again, for multiplayer hunts, where you can of course guarantee aggro is split between players. It's also useful for playing a little bit safer, because a lot of the time most of the damage attacks come from the front of the monster, and of course if you're fighting something that you are not used to, or maybe you kind of get defeated by the time, then having the ability to actively not have to go and sit at its face is definitely going to be pretty handy. It's also worth noting, weapons with explosive damage such as the gun lance or the charge blade also see a benefit and an increased damage from attacking from the back and the side. That's typically a lot rarer for weapons like these, because a lot of the time they often won't get benefit from those particular elements of their weapon. You'll of course get benefits to just the raw hits, but when it comes to things like shells or of course files, often they don't benefit from the same things, hence why you typically lean towards skills like artillery. But this time round, it does benefit. It's basically a flat damage boost across the board. Again, ranged weapons that might not necessarily want to be directly head on with the monster, because of course they are more squishy, again have the opportunity to exploit that damage bonus. And again, while it might not necessarily be a sweaty speedrun skill, it is incredibly fun to use and fundamentally changes the way that you hunt. It can also turn you into a tail chopping fiend. And of course that now means longsword users can go back to the tail where they belong. But do be sure to let us know what weapons you guys use with this skill. It is also worth noting, it's not necessarily as useful if you play solo, since of course the focus will largely speaking be on you, unless of course you happen to be playing with your buddies, or maybe you put it in a trap and then you explicitly go to the side. It's also worth noting this doesn't necessarily seem to work well with special ammo such as sticky, cluster or slicing, and it also does not seem to work well with elemental charge blade. But let us know if you found any more use cases that perhaps do not work with this skill. However, this does synergize very nicely with some of the following skills. Attack skills, of course, any of your standard ones here that will of course increase your raw attack, these will all stack very nicely because it's just a further boost to damage. Also worth noting that as Sneak is a percentage based skill, anything and everything that contributes will just apply the same logic as before when it comes to building attacks into your sets. Especially artillery, for example, if you're attempting to use weapons like charge blade and gun lance, having those on top will also be nice. Fleetfoot Feet also means that your palico draws more attention, which is of course is ideal if you're attempting to use this skill solo. You can use that as a means to basically give you plenty of openings to get to the back of the monster. Furthermore, attack boosting silk binds like the gun lance ground splitter, that's of course a nice thing to stack on top. Monster exploit gems again will of course give you further additional damage, so keep that in mind as well. It is worth noting however that this does not synergize well with diversion. This of course is the skill that gives you aggro when attacking, which defeats the point. In fact, it directly works against you, so generally speaking you want to avoid putting this into your set. As for the Dango side of things, nothing that sort of explicitly synergizes with this one, so run with whatever you like the most. But generally speaking, that is pretty much it. It is a nice, cool new skill that gives you some different ways to play, allows you to sort of get more out of repositioning and attacking different locations of the monster, and again is also incredibly useful for certain things like tail cuts. Pair this with Part Breaker, and you have a very nice combination for cutting off tails. Anyway, with that being said, that's it. That's your look at Sneak Attack. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you've missed some of the recent videos, you can check out one of these ones, and keep it locked for plenty more.